We're here live at Northwood University. We are at the International Auto Show at the CAM Summit, America's University. And our panel today, Ted, we are going to be talking about dealer business management. Who do we have with us today?
And Sarah, I'm very honored as well because we've got some great names in our industry with us here today. I'm going to have them introduce themselves, starting with Jeff, and tell us who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Northwood, for having us. A lot of energy on this campus, and you should be really proud of what you've accomplished here. My name is Jeff Beals. I'm the Senior Vice President of Professional Services at CDK Global. I'm responsible for implementation of hardware, software, in our consulting business.
And just hand them. Sure.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. I'm Tom Kline. I'm lead consultant and founder of Better Vantage Point. I'm a former dealer of 30 years. I do risk and compliance consulting, and I like to say that running a dealership is like trying to tuck an octopus into bed, but the tentacles keep flopping all over the place. So I'm the guy who tucks the tentacles. Great to be here.
Rebecca?
Hi, Becky Chernek here. It's a pleasure to be here with the folks here with Northwood University. And so I've been involved in the automotive industry for my entire career, starting out with my father, who had a Cadillac and Pontiac dealership, and worked my way up the ladder into F&I. And F&I I found was made for me, and I was made for F&I, and then later became a national F&I consultant throughout the USA, obviously, and Canada, and then later as a corporate F&I director, and currently now working with Agora data. Thank you.
And I'm Brian Kramer. I'm the Executive Vice President of Cars Commerce, which we own Cars.com, Dealer Inspire websites, AccuTrade, acquisition tools, Fuel, in-market video, that whole suite of products. I spent 28 years in retail, 20 of those years running dealerships for the Germain Automotive Group and AutoNation.
Thank you, everyone on our panel today. Brian, I'm going to come to you first. You know, we are talking about the current economic concerns. There's things like interest rates that are at top of mind for customers. What should we be paying attention to?
Well, obviously a lot, and I'm of the belief that you can control any situation, and regardless of good times, bad times, it's a matter of what you can control, and there's enough controllables that you can control your way out of any situation. But on a macro level, I would say that for an affordability issue, I think that, we were talking about EVs a moment ago. I think used EVs are a huge opportunity. There's a lot of availability of those vehicles at the auctions, a lot of people not going after them. And it's a great vehicle. We see on Cars.com websites that 8% of the consumers are looking for an EV, a used EV, but 12% are actually transacting on a used EV. So what does that tell? That tells me that everybody doesn't know that they want one yet, but they do know that they can afford one as soon as they come in on a Camry or another vehicle, a Honda Accord. Once they come in on that vehicle, switching them to a Tesla Model S or something like that is, I think, something that every dealership needs to think about right now.
And I'll come to you, Jeff. So for your perspective, what current economic concerns should we be thinking about?
Yeah, I think, to me, every concern is also an opportunity. And when I look at historical downtimes and things that we're preparing for, it always comes back to fixed ops and how we can manifest better profits and resistance and resilience through fixed operations. So, my advice is to really focus on those areas, get tight in your fixed operations, your parts, because there's plenty of mitigations in those areas. And it's also a place where, you can really focus on a great customer experience and get customer retention and loyalty back to where it needs to be to maintain a successful dealership.
Tom, your perspective.
Thanks, Sarah. My perspective here is it's not necessarily how much money you make as a dealership, it's how much money you keep. And the current political and regulatory environment continues to be challenging for dealerships. And I think that will continue regardless of what happens in November. The FTC, the CFPB, all are more active. You've seen a lot of regulatory actions the attorneys general in the states are partnering more with the FTC, and I think now is a good time to make sure your house is in order from a compliance and risk perspective, to make sure that you can weather those economic problems when they come, or that you're prepared for problems actually before they get to the dealership.
Becky, what current economic concerns should dealers be paying attention to?
I like the idea behind understanding your cost of sale, understanding where you are at all times, and recognizing the importance of being able to back into the total cost of sale of selling a car to finance to fixed ops. I think many times we don't really take into factor the total cost of sale and how we're impacting our sales, and potentially the idea of keeping our customer in our own ecosystem and controlling that book of business, and how important that is, what one customer, to retain that individual, not only at point of sale, but also from later on to retain that customer into service. And so when we drive that behavior of having a better understanding of the our customer base and understanding how we drive that business is going to be critical going forward. Thank you.
Yeah, Brian, go ahead.
One last thing, just to touch on what Bob Cron said earlier in the last session. He talked about used cars and fixed operations. Those are the two things that are controllable in any environment, any economy. And I don't think that enough dealers are focusing on 100% service absorption and tracking that and going after that relentlessly in order to prepare themselves if there is an economic downturn. That's the first thing. The second thing is used vehicle acquisition. Franchise dealers are getting squeezed and pinched by used car acquisition consolidators to acquire their consumers' trades. And that's the key to service loyalty and retention. So the look to book numbers and everything needs to be rethought and redefined. And everybody needs to look at, for how many new cars do you sell? What percentage of those have a trade? For every used car you sell, what percentage of those have a trade? And 43% is the average on new cars, and 28% is the average on used cars. Those numbers are way too low. It should be 70%. So if you're not at that number, you're a dealer and you don't know if you're appraising enough cars. And in many cases, new car franchises are appraising less cars than they're selling. So I would take a hard look at that across the whole country. It's a serious opportunity. That's how you galvanize yourself and insulate yourself from any economic external conditions.
So let me ask the panel, here we are squarely in the fourth quarter. And within a matter of just a few weeks, we'll blink our eyes, we'll be in a brand new year. And there's a lot ahead, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of change happening. So I want to ask the panel, I'll start with Brian Kramer. What are any of the concerns or opportunities you see on the horizon? And if some of you want to speak to things such as the regulations that are on the horizon, but opportunities and concerns that we may or may not be aware of, Brian Kramer.
Well, everybody I think is familiar with the CARS Act and truth in lending, FTC violations, and all those sorts of things. I would already, if anybody who's not doing that needs to already be doing that, because it's the right thing to do. But overall, from a transparency standpoint, if you want to acquire more trades, you have to be more transparent. If customers don't want to spend as much time, you need to lead with transparency and just being, honest in your online merchandising. When it's gonna create more friction, take longer when the client arrives if there's a lot more add-ons and things that aren't fully disclosed. If the goal is to increase sales velocity, increase appraisal velocity, and increase service RO velocity, it's not only the right thing to do, they're going to force it down on I don't like regulations personally. I don't like anything being forced on me. I would rather see it as the profit opportunity. I look at it as a competitive advantage. But I would say at some point, everybody's going to have to do it. If you've already done the hard part of retraining your staff, hiring for that, you're already ahead of the game. But everybody's going. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when.
Tom Kline, you're doing a lot of great work on the compliance side. I want to ask you the same question. What do you see on the horizon in terms of opportunities, concerns, and perhaps even key regulations?
Thanks, Ted. Compliance. Nobody likes compliance, right?
No.
if Brian said to his wife, I want dinner at 6 and you better comply, he'd be promptly divorced, right? So let's get a different paradigm a little bit for compliance real quickly. Compliance is simply someone has to do a thing, whatever that thing is, at some point in time and periodically, and then prove that it's done, right? That's what compliance is. And I think that the CARS Act that Brian mentioned, there's oral arguments in Texas in November. And I think that a ruling will be handed down in Q1 in 2025. What the CARS Act really does is it forces transparency into the sales process. Probably the biggest shift that if it passes, and I believe that it will, the biggest shift that you're going to see is that there isn't going to be, in my opinion, there won't be any more MSRP advertising because processing fees or dock fees will have to be included in the advertised price. So that's going to create a shift not only for the dealers, how they advertise, how they think about advertising. It's also going to force all the website providers to be able to change, how all that looks. The disclosures have to be, quote, clear and conspicuous, which they're supposed to be already. So I think that there will be a lot of people who are scratching their heads and trying to figure out how to make that work from a retailing perspective, because it's going to shift how people retail cars, with the exception of some states like Georgia. Georgia already has that you have to have those fees included in advertised pricing. So, of course, I could talk about this for a long time. But
I have a follow-up for you.
Sure.
So, Tom, you mentioned the dock fee. Okay, there is very little, if any, consistency between dealers in terms of what they charge for things such as a dock fee.
Right.
And now there's going to need to be a need for disclosure, okay?
Right.
Where a lot of this is going to be more transparent. Talk to us about some of the roadblocks and challenges ahead that dealers can expect, because this is coming a lot quicker than people realize.
Right. Well, I mean, I think the first thing, and I've been in a lot of stores, and if you ask a salesman, say, hey, what's that processing fee for? And you'll get answers from, well, that's for the owner's boat payment. Up to, well, that's the fee that's charged, and they try to go into a very uncomfortable, that's what we, and they really can't get it out. It's like, come on, you can do it. So I think some training in that area is going to be super important, obviously, to know what that really is and what you can and can't say, because certain states have certain requirements and regulations about what you can and can't say and what it's for, and is it mandatory or is it not mandatory? And in some states, the fees are capped. I think New York is one of those. I think $175. It's capped. So it really is going to depend a lot on what state the dealer is in.
Becky, these regulations, you are very much aware and on top of that, especially on the F&I and the finance and insurance side. Talk about that and what's ahead for dealers and what can we expect?
Well, actually, Tom and I had dinner last night, and we were talking about the compliance and our dealers really understanding their responsibility when it comes to compliance and rules and regulations. And are we in the trenches actually implementing the rules of engagement, I call that. And are we embracing those rules of engagement so that it is in our everyday process? And from someone who's in the trenches and recently, I can tell you we struggle with some of this. We struggle with having a better understanding, the education of understanding what our responsibilities are when it comes to doing the right thing. Are we above board? Are we being ethical? Do our processes and our culture match our mission to be ethical and upfront and transparent with our customers? And frankly, we do need to do a better job. It is important. Part of when I provided workshops throughout the country, I would always start off with, let's understand first rules of engagement. Once we can understand rules of engagement, we can understand these best practices. And until we understand rules of engagement to understand the reasons why we do what we do, it doesn't come together. That's our challenge.
Jeff Beal, let me come to you.
Sure. Look, I'll kind of take a byproduct of what we're talking about with transparency. I think we learned a lot from what transparency success looks like, particularly in fixed ops, when we've looked at things like video and really engaging the customer ahead of time to get them educated on what they have. Well, we're at a point in time now where the consumer is going to be more educated than ever, and it's time to prepare. It's a time now where, as we prepare for these regulations, that you can have training with your sales staff, get a more consultative approach, because your customers are coming in now with more information than ever, and being able to have those approaches, have that transparency, and really give a consultative approach. I heard a lot of great talks in the last panel about hospitality. We are a hospitality business, and now that differentiator is going to be more important than ever, both from a profitability standpoint, selling and servicing more vehicles, but also adapting to some of these new rules and regulations that are coming out that are going to affect our industry. So to me, it's embracing the things that we've been successful with, transparency being one of those things. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to turn something that could be a little bit uncomfortable into something that's wildly successful.
We're here at Northwood University with our audience today, many of whom are students at Northwood University. And one of the things, Brian, I think I'll come to you to ask this. There's a lot of challenges today on employee recruitment and how do we get people to work in our dealerships that are going to make our customers, want to be loyal and come back to us. What do you feel would be some of the challenges that we're seeing today, and how can we address them?
Well, I would say obviously there's a technician shortage, there's a labor shortage. Finding younger sales associates that are drawn to this industry to work, evenings, weekends, has always been a challenge. Where I'm at in Florida, we're open on Sundays, pretty much every dealership in the Southeast. So it's always a challenge, but there's also opportunities within all those challenges. I think it comes down to, like the last panel said, leadership. And it comes down to people leave leaders, they don't leave jobs. But as the leader's job is, and I think it was said in the last one, is to attract, develop, promote, and retain talent. And if the leader isn't doing that, and there's some OEMs that are investing in that, there's a lot of dealers that are investing in that, but I think that it's not even, it starts with general management and obviously top leadership, but it's also the middle management needs training and needs to understand and provide clarity of expectations. When when expectations are clear, decisions become very easy. And I don't think there's enough clarity in this industry as to what the expectations are. That's the first thing. The second thing is you got to empower all of your associates. When I was in retail, we enabled them to appraise their own vehicles. They could take a deal, pretty much start to finish. So when somebody else tries to recruit them, which happened many, many times, and offer them more money, once they realized that they weren't going to be able to move as fast and get as much accomplished, and they had to wait and all this friction, they wouldn't leave. They wouldn't leave over money because now they're part of the culture. The third thing is you got to rethink schedules. There's service drive opportunities. The service drive, if you're a salesperson, is only, closes at 5 o'clock. Maybe it should stay open later, but in most cases, that's the case. So why do they need to work nights? And why do they need to work Sundays? And why do they need to work every Saturday? So I think that's a great way to bring people into the industry. It's a great way to, and service drive acquisition is a huge opportunity. It's almost like its own internet department that can operate on its own, but we've got to rethink schedules, enablement, empowerment, and just like customers, they don't like waiting around.
Becky, your perspective.
It's all about the leadership. It is all about why do I want to work for this company or this dealership? And people follow other people that are successful. We need to encourage that momentum for individuals, new folks coming in from education into the car business. What's in it for me? Why do I want to follow you? Be the leader that other people can learn from, are encouraged to grow. Set expectations, correct expectations, have a roadmap for success. One thing I'd like to also point out, don't make it a guessing game. Give that individual all the support that we can to make sure that they can take ownership of the process of your culture and be there for them.
Jeff?
Sure. I think focus on 3 areas, and I was told once that if you hear something twice, it's probably the right thing. So some of this will be repeat, but to me, it's 3 key areas that we can really hone in on. 1 is training, and 2 is leadership, and 3 is flexibility. Similar to kind of what Brian was saying. If you look at training, in the absence of information, people become uncomfortable, particularly in a face-to-face interaction, which in our business happens quite a lot. So really investing in your team. I heard the word lifelong learning on the panel previously, and that's not a better phrase has been coined. I don't think you're always in a position to learn, and it's incumbent upon us, upon an industry, to provide opportunities for our associates to learn. We were fortunate to launch a professional certification program a few weeks back. That's been a huge game changer for us, and we're really excited about what that's going to do to help the industry. When it comes to leadership, again, I think it's all about how do you create that culture to keep people engaged and at your store, your group, or your enterprise. A lot of people in this room have worked at, like Brian said, at a company for their entire career. I've been fortunate to do the same for most of my career. And it's incumbent upon us as a culture to disseminate that leadership, to make people feel comfortable enough to stay, that they will be successful and they can take care of their family or their community as such. And then flexibility. I think we can learn from some of the other industries that have non-traditional hours, like healthcare and things like that, rotating shifts. It's important now to give people that flexibility, but also it's important for us to keep in mind that it's still a results-driven business, and we have to continue to make results, but offer that flexibility as well.
And Tom?
Thanks, Ted. I think I echo what everyone here said and seconded. But I would say we need to pay more attention to 2 different areas. One is emotional intelligence, and the second is change management. People have a very difficult time with change, and people have a very difficult time understanding what emotional intelligence is and how to apply it. And so doing more training in those areas, I think, would be key to continuing. You hear of recent the words human capital, to invest in your human capital that way. And I'm also going to piggyback on one of the questions that Ted, that you or Sarah asked earlier, which is what advice would I give students? And this is along the same lines. Number 1, listen more than you talk. You can't learn if you're talking. That's number 1. Number 2 is when you are approaching a difficult situation and having a difficult conversation, have no tone in your voice. Sounds super easy to do, but if you're upset, or the other person is upset, or they're yelling at you and you're trying to handle a situation, speaking slowly and having no tone goes a long way. And I think that's important in terms of dealing with difficult situations.
Great job. Okay, let's have a lightning round. This is our last question. 30 seconds each, everybody. Maximum of 30 seconds. Along the lines of what Tom just answered, you're addressing the students at Northwood University. Here we are coming into the end of the year, a graduating class coming up in the spring. Piece of advice that you'd like to share with them. I'll start with Jeff. We'll go back to Tom, Rebecca, and we'll bring Brian Kramer to bring it home.
Yeah, for me, it's just soak it all in. This is like any experience in your life. This will be one that you never get to relive, and have a great time with your friends, your peers, learn a lot. I agree. Listen, ask questions, be inquisitive. You got a ton. This is an incredible industry that's always willing to help, and just couldn't be prouder to be here and excited to see the energy in y'all's face. And congrats to all of you.
Tom?
I don't remember what the product was they were selling many years ago, but the phrase that comes to mind is "try it, you'll like it." And so that's what I would encourage the students to do, is try it. And don't be afraid to fail. You learn a lot from failure, generally more than successes. But go out there and try it, and don't be afraid to change if that course or that direction doesn't work for you.
So as I was saying this morning, when I got into the car business back in the day, women weren't supposed to sell cars. Women would not be successful in the car business. And I didn't take no for an answer. It was a dream. It was a vision. And I made it happen every step of the way. And there were times it's tough. It's not easy. And I can tell you sometimes at night, I would have cried myself to sleep because I made some stupid mistakes that I thought, wow, I don't think I can get over. And you go back and you face the next day and you push through and you make it happen. And you find the individuals that will help you, that will support you to push you through. And I will tell you, without a doubt, the car business has been the best business for me. And I know it will be the best business for you. Just take it, own it, and go with it.
All right. So people always ask me, what's the best franchise to work at? Where should I, what dealers group? Should I go to this dealership across the street, or who's got the best pay plan? Who's got the best whatever? I would look for wherever you can find the best mentor. Every piece of success, or every successful person I've seen in this business is a result of who took the time to train them. I think that's the most valuable asset you can look for in this business. So don't chase the money initially, or don't chase all those different things. That's, I would say, the first thing. The second thing is, it's such an exciting time to be coming into this business. And you know, a lot of the people that were on the previous panel and people that are still here yet to come, I mean, Brian Benstock's the original disruptor in this business, and he's already shattered a bunch of paradigms that existed. And there's the public retailers and Lithia and so many other people have redefined. When I worked at AutoNation, we worked there.
Yep.
But it redefined what the car business looks like, and it keeps on. That story is being written, and you get to write that story. And I think that there's not many more things that are more exciting than that. It also used to be so transactional, and it wasn't about the experience. Tom Dahl from Subaru proved that you can sell vehicles at scale, volume, profitably. And it's not all about the price, and it's about the experience, and I'm sure he'll talk about that. But you're coming in after there's been a lot of people that have gone through the gauntlet, and it's very cool for me to see, you know, being in the business for 30 years, to think about what the next 30 are going to be. And there's really no business like the car business. So you're lucky to be in it.
Everybody give our panel some love. Fantastic job. We're at Northwood University. Everybody, we will be right back.